Yes, I know I look different, okay? I got some work done. You better not judge me. We're in the year 2024. I hope we'll all be accepting of my new look. Anyways, welcome all to my 10,000 subscriber Q&A. Before I jump into answering these questions, I just want to say a quick thank you again to each and every one of you for tuning in, interacting with my videos, and taking some time out of your days to watch my content. It means more to me than I could ever explain, and as I've already said several times, I am extremely excited to see where this channel goes. But let's get into it. It's time for you all to learn a little bit more about me. Our first question comes from Justin EXE, who asks, "Can I ask 2 questions?" He then followed that up with, "This may be a bit personal, but what are your thoughts on Swiss cheese?" Well, Justin, I technically didn't say you could ask 2 questions, but I'll let you get away with it for this video. As for Swiss cheese, I'm a fan. I don't know what else to say. It's a pretty okay cheese in my opinion. Like, I'd put it in like the B tier of cheeses, but I don't think it's further up there. I hope that's not too controversial of a take. Moving on, Ray Owen 5838 asks, "What inspired the Stickman?" Pretty simple answer here. I couldn't really draw anything else. I don't know if you can tell by the style of my videos, but I'm not exactly an artist by any means. My initial idea for this channel was that the animation would always be there to supplement the actual information I was discussing. It was never meant to be the main focus of my videos, largely because I feel like I'm much better with my words than I am with my drawing. That being said, I do want to improve on my animation. I'm sure it'll get better with time. How I do it now takes enough time as is though. But yeah, the inspiration for the Stickman was basically that I simply can't draw well enough for more complex stuff. Also, I feel like the Stickman is kind of synonymous with accessibility, you know? I just want to keep things simple. So if the animations are simple, maybe more people will view the information in the video as simple and easy to digest as well. I don't know if that fully made sense, but let's keep going. Staying on the subject of the Stickman, Jagger H4L asks, "How much do you weigh in kilograms?" Well, this is a very personal question, but I'll still answer it anyway. As you know, I look a little bit different than I did in my previous videos, so that's added to my weight a little bit. As of now, I'm around 0.5 kilograms, or just over 1 pound. My skinnier self was about 0.3 kilograms. Now, you may think I've put on a lot of weight, but that's nothing compared to my younger years. I was about 10 kilograms in this photo. I've come a long way. Jaden RC2389 asks, "What is your favorite fast food place, and what is your typical order?" Another great question, and actually kind of a tough one for me to answer. I'm a big fan of chicken tenders. I have been my whole life. They're probably one of my favorite foods, and I am not embarrassed to say that. Honestly though, for my favorite fast food place, I'm gonna go with a bit of a dark horse and say Culver's. That probably gives you an indication as to where I live. Yes, I'm a Midwestern man, but dude, the Culver's menu is unmatched. Butterburgers, legit. Cheese curds, legit. And their buffalo chicken tenders, oh my god. Dare I say they're the best fast food tenders out there. The one downside is their fries. I'm not a big fan of the crinkle cut style, but everything else is so good. As for my order, it would have to be the buffalo chicken tenders, a side of onion rings, and a big old Diet Coke. Ooh, I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Quick question here, Unknown Creates asks, "How do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? 1 knife or 2? I feel like the only right answer here is 1 knife, but you do peanut butter first, put it on the bread, wipe the knife off, dip in the jelly, and put that on the other piece of bread. Using 2 knives seems wasteful, and if you don't wipe off the knife in between, then you're just mixing peanut butter in the jelly jar, and things are gonna get messy. Maybe I'm wrong though. I don't know. I don't make PB&Js too often." The Derpy Henchman has a few questions for me, so let's go through each one. The first question he asks is, "What are your hobbies?" Outside of YouTube, because yes, this is a hobby for me, it's pretty standard stuff. I'm a big sports fan, particularly baseball, basketball, and football. I play a lot of video games. I've been trying to get back into reading. There isn't too much else. I honestly don't have a ton of hobbies. The next question the Derpy Henchman asks is, "Why do you like politics?" Another good question. To be honest, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with politics. I love it because I'm just a big believer in people having a voice and having the ability to share their beliefs openly and actually trying to make a difference in the world they live in. I think it's something that a lot of us take for granted sometimes. Voting at all levels of government, from local to federal, is something that I don't believe should be taken for granted. As for why I hate it, it just really isn't civil at all these days. It can be very difficult for people to have conversations with those who fundamentally disagree with them on certain issues. I can understand that to a degree, but with the way things are now, it just feels like tensions are incredibly high, and depending on which side you say you're on, people will immediately make assumptions about the kind of person you are. That's just my opinion though. The final question from the Derpy Henchman is, "What do you want to do for a living outside of YouTube?" To be honest, I have no idea. I went to school for journalism and have a degree in journalism, so ideally it would be something to do with writing or reporting. Part of why I started doing YouTube is because of the reporting aspect to it. If I could one day make this my full-time job, I would do it in a heartbeat. MobJeep72 asks 2 questions. The first being, "How the hell did you come up with your name?" Simple. The original idea for this channel was to answer hypothetical questions about all sorts of random topics related to science, history, and current events. I've mainly been in the current events boat as of recently though, but the name Hypotheticals was just meant to represent what I want to talk about on this channel. The second question from MobJeep is, "Do you see yourself doing YouTube when you're old? Potentially. I love doing what I do. Unfortunately, with the way the world works, I need to pay the bills to keep the lights on. Like I just said, if I am able to make this my full-time job one day, I would absolutely do it. As of now though, it'll have to remain a passion project for me. But I'm okay with that too. And nothing is stopping me from doing it on the side when I'm older. 2Radical7556 asks, will you be mainly doing political videos from now on, or will you continue making videos on other topics? This is a good question, and it kind of depends on what you all want to see. I originally envisioned this channel being a space where I could take questions from all of you and answer them in videos. Obviously, as the channel has grown a bit more, it's become a bit harder to do that though. I originally started doing political videos because I like politics and I wanted to try and inform people about election news. Once we're past the election, I'll likely venture back into other forms of content, like science or history videos. I definitely still enjoy making those, but I also want all of you to enjoy the content I make, so let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Epidemic has 2 questions for me. First up, they ask, can you draw the stick figure with a cowboy hat? Sure, I'll put one on for the rest of the video. After that, Epidemic asks, is this channel your first pursuit into content creation? The answer to that is no, actually. I've had 2 pursuits into content creation before, both of which were gaming YouTube channels. The videos from those channels have long been unlisted or removed entirely from YouTube, so good luck trying to find them. Maybe one day I'll reveal a couple of those older videos on this channel, though that would be pretty embarrassing. Ho Lee has 2 questions as well. You thought I was gonna read your whole name and make myself look like a fool. No sir, not today. The first question is, who's your favorite president in American history? I don't know if I have a favorite or if I could pick just one. Every US president in history has some good and some bad, and some were definitely far worse than others. They all 100% have their flaws. Overall though, I'm a massive fan of the national parks and their services, so I'm going to go with Teddy Roosevelt. While he wasn't entirely responsible for their creation, he set aside several sites to be designated as national monuments, like the Grand Canyon, which eventually was made into a national park. He also had a phenomenal mustache, which is one that I hope to one day replicate. Their second question is, when do you think the golden age of America was? Are we living in it now? I'll answer the second part of that question first by saying no, definitely not. I feel like the concept of a golden age tends to be associated with economic prosperity, innovation, and general peace. If we're going based on economic prosperity, the only correct answer would be the post-World War II era. This is something that's widely agreed on by historians too. The post-World War II era saw economic prosperity in America. We saw a huge increase in the population of the US because of the baby boom. Over 50 million people were born in the United States between 1950 and 1970. This era also saw things like the rise of the television, and many Americans enjoyed a good standard of living. There were also plenty of jobs available in general during this time, which is known today as the golden age of capitalism. Of course, there was still the threat of nuclear war looming over everyone's heads, but I mean, come on, when has the US ever truly been in a time of peace? The next question comes from Skippy Upix, I hope I said that right, who asks, what steps do you take and what tools and strategies do you personally utilize to protect yourself from developing an unjustified political bias in one way or the other? This is a great question. For one, I don't want to sit here and pretend like I don't have political biases. I obviously do because everyone does, and I'm not immune to them. I just don't want them impacting the information I provide. To answer though, I would say the biggest thing I do to avoid unjustified biases is just reading the news that comes from both sides. Pretty much every morning I'm reading stories from all across the political spectrum. Whether that be from CNN or Fox News, you have to try to get a good balance of bias in the news you read. No matter how ridiculously biased you may find a site's reporting to be, it's important to read it and question why they might be in that headspace. One of my favorite things to do is read stories that are on news conglomerates. Whether they're stories on the front page of something like Drudge Report or Real Clear Politics, which both lean right, or stories on the front page of something like Reuters, which leans left, you can find stories from all sorts of different media outlets. Sometimes I click on a story without looking at who published it, I read the whole thing, think it's fairly reported, then look at who published it and think, wow, they wrote that? A lot of us have these sort of innate reactions to certain media outlets ingrained in our brains, and by not looking at who published an article, I found that you can sort of disrupt that way of thinking. I hope that makes sense and it doesn't seem like I'm rambling too much. Anyways, Skippy Upix also included a bonus question, which was, what is your opinion on the 24-hour news cycle and its effects on public discourse? My opinion is that it kind of sucks, because I believe it incentivizes the news to be constantly searching for the next big headline rather than continuing to cover the stories that truly matter. While I think that news should be easily accessible and stories should be covered, I'm not a big fan fan of the news being something that strives for profit. Obviously, that's just the way the world works, but in my mind, the 24-hour news cycle makes news companies push for even more profit. I also feel like it encourages clickbait, and that has a huge impact on public discourse because people will forget about things and move on from them much quicker. But anyways, let's move on from that. For the final question of this Q&A, Miller Killer asks, why does the current political system go against what our founding fathers wanted? Meaning we now really only have a choice of 2 people each year, instead of being able to vote for who would do the job the best. Is there any way around this other than 1 vote at a time? The simple answer to this is that people want to remain in power, and by keeping the 2-party system in place, both Democrats and Republicans are able to remain in office and keep a duopoly of sorts in the American political system. I don't know a ton about what the founding fathers wanted, but I know some of them weren't big fans of political parties at all and didn't really want them to ever be a thing. But of course, now they're what dominate political discourse in the United States today. As for whether there's a way around this aside from 1 vote at a time, not really, and that's what makes voting so important. Unless of course you want to start a revolution and topple the government. If that's the case, then by all means go right ahead. Well, I think that's a great place to end this Q&A. Thank you again to everyone who submitted questions. If you submitted a question and I didn't answer it, then I'm sorry. I unfortunately wasn't able to include each one. Maybe I'll do another one of these in the future though, who knows. I can also reply to comments with questions, so feel free to comment one down below if you have one. Anyways, that's all I've got for this hypothetical. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to like and subscribe. More videos coming soon. Thanks so much for watching and for your continued support. And thank you again for 10,000 subscribers. I really appreciate it. Hope I see you next time. Take care.